So this might be controversial, but Metroid sucks. No, not the series, the first game. Okay, maybe it's not controversial, but outside of professional reviewers reviewing re-releases of the game, I never hear anyone complain about Samus's first outing. Now why is that? Is it because of how influential it was to later game design? Is it because it was created the Metroidvania, one of the greatest 2D adventure game genres? Is it because of the rockin' tunes of the password system that allowed you to continue your adventure later? Is it because you had established the Metroid franchise, which happens to be my favorite series? Yes, I'm actually a die-hard fan of Metroid games. I love them so much I did a speedrun and went through every game in one day. Now look, I understand how important the game is, especially in 1986 or 87 in America, but that does not mean that the game does not suck now. Now let me get the biggest problem out of the way first. You start with 30 health every time you play. If you have a full stack of 6 energy tanks, then what that means is that when you put in a password to continue the game, you're starting with 5% of your health. Now this is completely unconducive to a game built upon adventure. How can you adventure if you keep dying because you don't feel like grinding for health? And grinding for health takes ages. You have to sit at a duct, wait for an enemy come out of it, shoot it, hope the random number gods favor you, and because the chances that they drop health is actually pretty low, and then when you get health, you only get 5 units of it. It completely breaks the feel and the flow of the game. Of course, this flaw goes away if you just never die and complete the game in one sitting, which it's really not that hard to beat once you know what you're doing, but that ruins the point of the game. You're underground, an underground alien planet. You're exploring the depths. You can't be exploring if you don't know what you're doing. If you're exploring, then you don't know what you're supposed to do or where to go because you haven't explored yet. The game gets a lot easier if you're playing it well, but this is true for a lot of NES games. Most of Contra becomes trivial if you have this better gun and the ability to not die. Zelda starts you with only 3 hearts if you die. Blaster Master becomes a much more difficult game if you get hit and lose your weapon upgrades. Plenty of games reward you with extra lives for doing well. But Metroid just takes this to the extreme and pretty much just makes the health upgrades that you get useless when you die. But besides that, the game is unreasonably cryptic. It's fine to leave you directionless in the game, but not clueless. If you don't have an outside source telling you the game's map, you'll be stuck for years. Now, the reason, there's no indication which blocks are breakable and which aren't. When you get to Norfair, you're pretty much going to get stuck after exploring every room you can, but to actually get to the next place, you have to bomb the block in the corner of the vertical shaft. Why? It's just not guessable, and so much of the game is built upon blasting away unmarked blocks. It just kills the flow of the game to just go around bombing each and every block. Now, in Metroid sequels, bombable and shootable textures are marked, and while Metroid 2 remains a lot of the crypticism that Metroid 1 has, it's not anywhere near as bad. So what I'm saying is that Metroid is bad because it's too hard. Yes, challenge isn't a bad thing, even in ridiculous amounts, and see, I love Battletoad, and it's much harder than Metroid, but challenge is not conducive to Metroid's design. Metroid is a game built on exploration, but you can't explore if you keep dying, and exploring isn't fun if you just wind up clueless, because you can't figure out which block is bombable. But if they fix these problems, yeah, we'd end up with an amazing game, which is what Nintendo did pretty much when they released Zero Mission years later. And that game is one of my favorite games of all time. Luckily, Nintendo learned what they were doing and fixed these mistakes in the sequels. Save points retained your health, and pathways were only rarely obscure, and rarely were they cryptic. Your exploration was no longer hampered by tablet design. Now, Metroid, it's certainly a great game in terms of its influence, but, well, it's just not very good for someone to actually play.